It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. Why should the daily scrum be time boxed to 15 minutes? Just last week, one of my students in class said, they asked this question, and it was just so beautiful because it was so simple. It was one of the goals or objectives that they had on the wall. Their question was, who cares if we take 20 minutes, 25 minutes, or even 30 minutes to do a daily scrum? As long as it was productive, why are we limited to 15 minutes or less? Now, I could have given a simple answer and said, because the Scrum Guide says so. According to the book of Who, here are the things that you should do, right? But that wasn't the answer they were looking for. Of course, we know the answer should go deeper. So, if you understand the purpose of the daily scrum, it may help you better engage and better understand why it needs to be 15 minutes or less. So here we go. So let's start by pulling up the Scrum Guide real quick, where it says the purpose of the daily scrum is to inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary, adjusting the upcoming planned work. So the sprint goal has become the central focus. And if there is any deviation necessary, the daily scrum is the moment to make that happen and discuss it. But wait a minute, you have discussions during your daily stand up? My answer is yes. I often say that the daily scrum should be something that's 15 minutes or 15 minutes or less a day. I go on to say it should be 30 seconds per person, not to exceed 15 minutes, because most people, if not being interviewed, can get to the crux of what they're trying to say in 30 seconds or less. It just works. So I think that you have to understand what the real intent of the daily scrum is in order for you to be able to promote how you're going to adjust it. So the first big thing for the daily scrum is it's intended to create connections between team members. There, I said it. Giving and getting help is one of the things that makes the team a team. It makes them progress. It lets them identify failure early and fail often. To make progress, someone might need help from someone else on the team, and that might benefit the team as a whole. So I hear a lot of people say, well, there's no problem solving. The truth is, the message was no pontificating to solve problems. So if you can solve a problem in 30 seconds or less, you should. So my point here is I think it's an incredible opportunity to solve those fast problems, to make sure we're all on the same page, and to identify what we can do further to help teams understand this and to help organizations understand this so that they can maximize the benefit they get out of this meeting. All right. The second purpose of the Daily Scrum is to highlight any other important business. There might be a cool workshop coming up, or some tests that have failed, or a fire drill announcement. It's important for the whole team to understand some of these things, and the Daily Scrum is a great place to get that message across as long as you're doing it within your 15-minute time box. What I can tell you is that in the stable framework, they even add that fourth question, or that the ability for the master chief, to go in and to make sure that everyone is aware of the news of the day, so to speak. It doesn't need to be long-winded. It can still be contained within the 15 minutes. In fact, what I found is when we incorporate this principle, it often shortens the time in our daily stand-ups, which is really interesting. But if you find that your meetings are overrunning, there are other reasons that your meeting should be overrunning to 15 minutes. Number one, right out of the gate, I'm sure you're going to guess it, is that the Scrum Master destroys the meeting. I know it sounds crazy, but when a Scrum Master turns this into a, hey, welcome to Daily Scrum, we're so glad you could be here today. So tell me, Jonathan, what are you working on today? The second you turn it into one of these Q&A, Scrum Master's doing 80% of the talking, you're going to quickly realize that one, 15 minutes was not enough, and two, that you're not really solving problems, that you're just providing, tools or experiences to help the team do a daily report so leadership feels good, but it doesn't give the team any additional credence towards getting their work done. So you got to be careful and understand the logic behind this. So number two, when teams don't have a sprint goal, if they don't have a sprint goal, it almost always runs over because people aren't focused on the same thing. Number three, when we put up the board on our virtual wall or our physical wall and we discuss everything, each item, each card, when you're discussing everything but the sprint goal, and talking about how each little micro contribution is in effect, you're destined to fail. The next one, when you find that everyone is wanting to say something, and they all have something to say because they have no other opportunities to talk about it. That's a common problem, and that often causes things to go over. Or focusing on telling the whole story instead of running straight to the conclusion for the action, or giving a complete what I call status update, and talking about everything extensively. It's already on track. That's another one. So if it's doing good, everything's great. Spending extensive amount of time talking about it probably isn't a good idea. What about having multiple sprint goals? It seems like there's too many people on the team oftentimes, where people are divided among sprint goals and are not sure what they really should or shouldn't be doing. How about discussions going on between 2 or 3 or 4 people that are just kind of rotating between those people and not inclusive of everyone? Something that the one time that it is appropriate to say, hey, let's take it offline. And of course, while all the above is happening, people are checking out, messing with their devices or whatever, instead of intervening and causing it to go back on track. So the truth is, the 15-minute marker is not a holy grail. It's not set in stone. It's not entirely prescriptive. But in most, if not all of my organizations, we always honor 15 minutes or less. I would rather go a day not knowing than to overrun the 15 minutes. I think that we need to be more respectful of the team's time, more courteous of what their work is, and work in a way that lets them know that we are confident in their abilities and that we need to support their ability to work together harder and smarter instead of loosely and calling additional meetings. The last hiccup that I do want to throw out there that I just see often, so I want to make sure I reemphasize it, is that I've been to a lot of daily Scrum meetings where it seems like the Scrum Master is the king or queen of taking everything offline. Oh, that's something we got to discuss. Let's take it offline. Let's take it offline. Wrong meeting. Let's take it offline. The last thing, so the number one complaint that team members make, is that they're in too many meetings. So the last thing they want you to do in this meeting is set them up and schedule them for another meeting. Oh my goodness, this is common sense, right? So if you can prevent those team members from having to have another meeting by allowing the conversation to go on for up to 30 seconds, what you'll find is that you can usually get the most valuable information and oftentimes solve the problem in that first 30 seconds without having to have another meeting. So what I'm trying to say is don't let it go on forever, but give teams the opportunity to have a conversation when they need to. All right, you know what? I hope that helps. That's a lot about the Daily Scrum again. If you have a topic you want us to discover or dig in or talk about, feel free to reach out to us at learnmore@agiledad.com. We would love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.